In this video, I'm going to talk about taking smart notes and how to do that in Rome in the most effective way. If you're new to note taking in general or to using a Zettelkasten-like approach when doing it, I highly recommend the book How to Take Smart Notes by Sönke Ahrens. It is a fantastic exploration of Niklas Luhmann's Zettelkasten system and how to do that well today. Some of the advice there is, in my opinion, not applicable to taking notes inside Rome, but it is a great starting point for building your own system. What Sönke Ahrens and I agree on, though, is the general advice to read with a pen in hand, right? Taking notes while you read. The question, though, is what should those notes look like? And here I think it's first of all important to keep in mind that we're not looking for a perfect taxonomy of note types, right? But something that helps us think and write better. And one of the core tenets of how I suggest you use Rome actually contradicts what many people, including Sönke, will tell you about note taking. And that is don't just highlight and underline. And in a way, of course, that approach is totally correct when you're leaving the highlights in place, right? A highlighted paragraph in a book doesn't do you any good if you don't remember it's there. And in a system that mimics a real world slip box, a Zettelkasten, this is also not useful. But Rome is fundamentally different because Rome collects indirect backlinks. And so the more content you can get into Rome, the better. And in fact, I would say that one of the problems that you often have with simple highlights is that you lose context, which then leads to people highlighting whole paragraphs or sections and then not doing anything with them. And in Rome, you can easily circumnavigate those problems, though. And in fact, my advice is actually to copy whole paragraphs and sections, apply your highlights in Rome, and then to create explicit backlinks and comments. That also frees you up to do multiple passes on the contents of a source without losing too much context, and it allows you to create insight asynchronously. And this kind of cycle of copying for context, then applying highlights and pulling out quotes inside Rome, commenting on those highlights and quotes, and linking to concepts, then creates a very powerful way of reaching critical mass reaching a critical mass of notes on a certain topics very fast. And I think the best way to do this is actually to show you how I do that usually, and go through a little demo here with my notes on the book, How to Take Smart Notes. So let's get into that. So this is the page for how to take smart notes, and these are all the quotes I took. This is very long paragraphs I just copied as a whole. As I scroll through here, you see that quite easily. And let's dive into how that looks, right? So this whole paragraph that I'm highlighting here, I just copied out of the book. And within that paragraph I copied out, I highlighted a sentence, right? And I did that in this very long section as well, 2 highlights here, and some tags for the contents of this. And as you can see in this small section, this preserves context, right? So if I had taken only the highlight from any of these sections, there would be context missing, obviously, right? But by copying over the whole section into Rome, I get that context with it. So what I do then is I pull the quote I'm actually interested out and mark it with a tag in the beginning as a quote. Keep the highlight. You don't have to keep the highlight, whatever works here for you. And then I comment on that particular quote. And the way I do this, again, I tag it as a comment and make a note here that how this relates to Rome and to the concept, don't let any good idea go to waste, and how Rome helps with that. What I also do is I tag this comment with the date I make it originally, right? What that allows me is that when I come back in a week or 2 or a month from now, and I want to pull out another insight, right? I simply make a new block, also make that a comment, and put that here. And then I can see my development of my thoughts on this topic and this quote through time, right? And by having all of these different steps into nested blocks, it's very easy to reference them in different places, right? So I can transclude the comment, or I can embed the whole quote in a different place and put it in a new context. When I go to the concept here that I thought about, don't let any good idea go to waste, I see where that comes from, what quote this was mentioned in, and without much effort, I get many different points from which I can then take off and accumulate more thoughts. Critically, this also allows me to do this in multiple steps, right? Since I am preserving the context by pulling out whole paragraphs, for example, you see down here, I didn't do much highlighting here at all. I put some comments in here and there as I was reading, but most of the time I just copied, hey, this looks like some interesting ideas in this section. And today I can go back and see, okay, here I have a fully formed thought of the original author preserved in context, and I can highlight and quote things that are interesting as I read this again. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in the video on progressive summarization, because that touches that more deeply. But this is just a general overview of how I would suggest you treat note taking in Rome. Of course, this is about note taking in the context of reading things, and I'll have another video on taking notes just as thinking notes as ideas come to your mind when you're out and about, or just generally thinking and how I treat that. But taking smart notes as you're reading, this is the approach I would suggest. So going back here, what should those notes look like? How should you treat taking notes inside Rome? Copy for context, copy as much as you think might be useful. Highlight and quote inside Rome. Write your comments into sub-blocks of the quotes that spark the comment. Tag them with the day you're making the comment to see your development directly in context of that quote. Link to concepts, and then repeat the cycle as often as necessary.